improve communication, reduce conflict and stress, better understand strengths and weaknesses so that your people are properly aligned in their jobs. Hire the right people. Let the Florida SBDC at IRSC transform your company using a customized assessment system, knowledge, and resources. Grow and accelerate your organization by turbocharging your team. To get started, contact the Florida SBDC at IRSC.
For confidential one-on-one business consulting at no cost, contact the Florida SBDC at IRSC at 336-6285. Online at irscbiz.com.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jensen Beach, Hope Sound, Martin County's Heritage Station.
It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Welcome back to the second half of the show. Just to remind everybody, I've got one more show this year, go on hiatus for the month of December. But next week, we're going to have Rob Ranieri in with the House of Hope. And also, I'm going to have a call-in from Nick Tezecker. He's from Disaster Studios. And he's a director and writer for movies that are more family-based, conservative-based. And he actually looks to help employ people that have been blacklisted in Hollywood because they were too conservative for the Hollywood scene. So he's a very interesting character, and he has a really fun movie in the works that he wanted to come on the show and share with everybody. Also, this weekend is the start of the Carnival of Lights. It starts November 25th through November 27th. So every Friday through Sunday at the fairgrounds, 5:30 to 9, and it'll run for 4 weekends beginning this weekend. Carnival of Lights is bigger than last year. It features a Castle Christmas, formerly in Isleworth and Palm City, and exhibits of 150 nativity sets, a nutcracker collection, and a huge ceramic Christmas village. So, you folks, you want to get out there. I saw them. They were starting to set up. It looked amazing, and it wasn't even all set up yet. So I can't wait to go out there and see what all they have done. Admission is just $8, and you know you're helping out our Martin County Fair, which is one of our most wonderful organizations here in the area. And if you're 10 and under, it runs free. So let's get in the holiday season, right, Gloria? You know?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, and Christmas is around the corner in another year. Goes so quickly. I also want to remind everybody that Indiantown Marina is one of South Florida's best boat storage facilities, and also they are a do-it-yourself and full-service boat yard, and they offer the best of both worlds when it comes to servicing your vessel. So if you need really any work done whatsoever, give the good folks at Indiantown Marina a call at 772-631-3272, 631-3272. And if you're here in Stewart and looking for something to do, you got to check out the best kept secret in Martin County. It's down in the Pocket, or Port Salerno. You can come by boat, car, or stroll the boardwalk to explore what the best kept secret has to offer. The boardwalk features local artists, an Airbnb, art gallery, boat charters, marina, and a craft and creamery. It has craft beers, wine, and 24 flavors of ice cream, so literally something for everybody. And you can rent paddle boards, you can rent bikes. It's a lot of fun out there at the Fish House Art Center, and it's in Port Salerno. Look them up online, thefishhouseartcenter.com, or give them a call, 772-221-5482, or just go ahead and head right out and have a little bit of fun. So now in the studio for the second half, I'm really pleased to have Gloria Seidule in here. She's a personal injury lawyer with 3 decades of experience on Florida's Treasure Coast. Her practice represents catastrophically injured clients in automobile and trucking accidents, victims of premise liability, medical malpractice, and the representation of survivors in wrongful deaths. Gloria has been awarded the 2022 Florida Justice Association Hall of Fame Eagle Award. She has been designated a Super Lawyer 2019 through 2022, 2020 Hastings Award, 2014 Alm Daily Business Review, Top Florida Verdicts and Settlements of 2013, 2013 Legal Leaders, Wall Street Journal, Miami Herald Daily Business Reviews, 2013 Top Rated Lawyers. I mean, the list goes on and on and on here. So, Gloria, I'm so pleased to have you in the studio. And, folks, we're talking about a very serious topic today. Gloria, in essence, she sues major corporations, businesses, and schools for their negligence in allowing access and allowing easy hunting grounds to sexual predators. The companies knew or should have known the predators will gravitate toward the organizations that they know provide safe hunting grounds and will turn a blind eye to sexual abuse. And Gloria, you're looking at or assisting prosecuting one of these cases right now. And I appreciate you coming in because, folks, if you're a parent out there, you really need to be aware of what's going on. You think that your child might need some health care of some sort, and you turn them over to a facility and you think they're in safe hands, and that's not always the case. So, Gloria, tell me a little bit about what you're working on right now.
That's very true, what you just said, and I've been doing this for a long time. I don't know why these types of cases have always come to me. Maybe it's because I'm a woman
Right.
and a trial lawyer, but they're near and dear to my heart because what's happening across America is atrocious. That's the word that I use. So there's a local organization here in Martin County that I just filed a lawsuit against. It's called Coral Shores Behavioral Health Facility. They do a lot of advertising in the area.
Yes.
And they offer services that are needed for children who cannot be helped outside of the outpatient. You know, they have to be inpatient.
Okay.
So they go in to this facility, and it's sort of a place of last resort for the parents to put their children,
Right.
and they entrust their children in the care of the facility. So I just filed a lawsuit on behalf of a client. Of course, that client was 13 years old at the time, and this is all based on the allegations in the complaint that are filed here in Martin County Circuit Court Civil. She went in because she was suicidal, and while she was there, she was sexually assaulted on numerous occasions
13 years old.
by another resident that was there, another minor child who was in the facility. Now, this was at the beginning. If you look at the complaint, it's at the very beginning part of the pandemic, which was when we had a lot of lockdown going on. Children, as we know, suffered greatly.
Definitely.
During the pandemic because of isolation and masking, and their whole lives were turned upside down. It's a little harder for some kids than others to handle.
Right.
And anyway, so the allegations in the complaint are that the staff members saw this stuff going on, and did nothing to stop the abuse.
And this poor gal, like you said, and this happens all over. This is just a current case that you're working on, and this is what's frightening to me as a parent. You think that you're helping your child; they need some sort of medical attention, and you're absolutely right. The pandemic, I think, really was a huge driving force for children. It was tough for them to handle, and in a lot of different
ways. The theme
ways.
that I have on these cases, and I tell parents this, I'd like to speak on this topic because people don't stop and think about this. Wherever there are children, there are sexual predators. So think about this. You entrust your children to a little league, which I've had cases against a little league. You entrust your children to soccer organizations. You drop your child off at the field. You entrust your children to teachers when you drop them off at the school, to the administrations, that they will protect. It's called in loco parentis, Latin.
Okay.
And that's the concept. I take my child to an organization. They are supposed to take care of them and not let them be sexually abused. And sexual predators look for hunting grounds. They are predators. That word is not used by accident. They are actually predators. And what they do is they will gravitate to places where they know that they can get away with this over and over and over again. So they find a hunting ground, so to speak, and they look for prey, which are the children. And we see this, I know you heard about the U.S. Gymnastics Organization problems. Well, and I filed a case also against the United States Soccer Federation. Wow. That was also filed locally in circuit court. And what happens is I don't understand why the companies, the institutions, the schools, I don't know why they turn a blind eye. I would like to hear from organizations on that. Why are you turning a blind eye? This is not something that we should sweep under the rug anymore.
No.
This is something that we need to take head on, because when a child is sexually abused by an adult when they are a minor child, their path in life is forever changed. They are not going to be the same person. And we have to do something to, as a community, to accept that this happens, understand that it happens, and parents play a very, very significant role in this.
With this particular case, and let me go back 1 minute here because you touched on it, but you have filed lawsuits. I mean, you just said the United States Soccer Federation, Little League, the St. Lucie School District, places of worship, retail businesses, daycares. Folks, as parents, these are places that we trust. And this should be extremely eye-opening that you never, never can just hand your child over to somebody and trust that somebody's going to care for that child and look out for your child as much as you will. And in fact, like you said, these are places that are so accessible to the children. There are predators there. They're hunting the children in these organizations, and that's really a frightening thing to me. And in this case in particular, the mother, I mean, Gloria, that's the tough thing. The mother wasn't allowed to just call in and check in and go see your daughter anytime. What do you do in these cases? I mean, this is super maddening to me, because even as a parent, as good as she is, she wasn't allowed to go and check on her daughter, and the daughter couldn't reach her.
That is a red flag. So I hear of cases where people drop their children off at daycares. And as a parent, you should be allowed to go in when you want without encumbrance.
Right.
If you come during the day, don't be told, you can't go in. Why can't I go in? As a parent, don't you ask that question?
Right.
Why can't I go in? Now, this was a behavioral health center.
Right.
And I'm sure there are rules that they have in place to regulate who can come in and out. And this was during the pandemic, too. So people are being told now, still during the pandemic, we're not isolating anymore.
Right.
You can't come into my facility. You can't come into the nursing home. You can't come into the hospital. We have rules and those days are over. You should not accept that. You can't walk into a facility to check up on your loved one. The other thing that parents can do is to educate your children. So don't be afraid to tell your child, and this is beginning when they enter into kindergarten. Don't be afraid. As soon as they can understand, and legally at the age of 6, a child can understand. Okay, so that's a sort of a benchmark for people, but you're sending your child off to kindergarten. And it's not only the teachers in these organizations, but it's also the other children.
Right.
A child at age 6 who has been sexually abused, it becomes a cycle. They can become sexual predators. Not necessarily knowing exactly what they're doing, but they can become sexual predators.
Right.
So,
right.
You have to educate your child, whatever language, whatever way you feel best. You want to go to your child and you want to say, look, if anybody touches you and it makes you feel uncomfortable, however you want to term it, you come to me. I'm your parent. I will protect you. They will threaten you. They could say things that don't tell your parents because they're going to be in trouble or they could get hurt. They threaten these children and they stay quiet. So you have to educate your child. So if anybody does this, if a child touches you inappropriately, if an adult does something that makes you uncomfortable, you tell me. And I will take care of it.
Somehow we have to make sure the children feel open to tell you. And that's a tough thing. I mean, I'm looking here at some of your notes, and, the staff retaliated against her when she reported it to management. That poor girl.
Yeah. Retaliation is something that happens in not only sexual abuse cases, which are minor children, but sexual harassment cases that we hear about. What happens is somebody will complain or make waves or tell on somebody. And I'll use a school example. You've trained your child, the child comes to you, you make a complaint, you go to administration, the administration goes, okay, well, we're going to move your daughter out of that classroom because there's a person in there that she believes is touching her inappropriately or saying inappropriate things. That's retaliation. Okay, that's a form of retaliation. The person who is making the complaint should not be the person who then has to turn around and be removed from the classroom. Why should your child be removed from the classroom? What they need to be doing is taking on the problem of the child or the adult in the classroom who is sexually harassing their child.
That's absolutely right. They're the ones that should be forced to be moved out of the class, because if they're doing it to one, obviously they can target somebody else very easily. And with your case, this was the other thing that shocked me, is that staff members witnessed the assault and did nothing to protect her. I mean, that's just frightening as a parent, to think that your child is in a facility where you're supposed to be getting her help, and in fact, in this case, I got to believe in every sense of the word, it was far worse for the child. Made everything worse for her.
It does, because what happens is when the retaliation happens, when a child makes that decision to tell, okay, and then adults retaliate, the trust issues that happen. And I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, but I've been doing this a long time and I've talked to experts about it. What happens is they lose trust. So not only did it take a leap of faith for them to come forward and say, this happened to me, but then they have to go forward out of that and experience retaliation. And in the complaint that I filed, the form of retaliation we saw there was placing her in the corner of the room, and the staff member this is after my client had complained, the staff member who she had complained about played a card game with the perpetrator in a common room while my client was placed over in the corner at a table, and sort of ostracized her while she was in the common room. Now, why does a staff member do that? Lack of training. There's negligent hiring, negligent training, negligent supervision counts. In all of these cases, it's not just against Coral Shores Rehabilitation Facility here in Martin County, but it's a common theme. These cases always have a common theme to them, and it always happens in the same manner, even when you look at the national cases that have occurred and thousands of people coming forward. We just saw with the United States Soccer Federation, they did an independent test or a report for the women's professional soccer organization, and those women all testified in that investigation that the abuse started in the child leagues. And so there's two separate organizations, and it's a problem that they have to take head on. They have to be able to state it happens in our organizations, much like they've acknowledged that players can get head injuries or knee injuries, or they take precautions for that. This is also a health issue. So they have to train the parents, I think, at the very beginning when they come in for orientation at these places. Look, you are in partner with us. This is what we're looking for. This is what we need to do. Your child should never be left alone with an adult, another adult, ever. Don't let your child get driven home from soccer practice with a coach.
It's scary to think that, but yes. I mean, you're here to say these cases are out there, and they happen more often than people realize.
Yes.
Don't assume anything these days. I mean, it's shocking. And as you're talking about this, Gloria, you've had a lot of cases over the years. Again, we're speaking with Gloria Seidule. She's a personal injury lawyer right here in Stuart. She has over 30 years of experience. And Gloria, is there a statute of limitations? I think about these children, and I have a teenager myself, and she's very personal, very quiet. She doesn't always come to me with things, and so I can imagine for a lot of young women, young girls, and I'm sure young boys as well, when this happens, it might be embarrassing to them, and it's maybe years before they talk about it. So, is there something is there statute of limitations?
Yes, there is. So typically in Florida, there's a statute of limitations of 4 years, so negligence. Wow. However, in Florida, if it's sexual abuse and the person hits the age of majority, and many times they don't remember that it happened or they're not able to come forward, they hit the age of majority, which is 18 years old. You have 4 years from your memory coming forth on after the age of majority. So there's a very broad statute of limitations. And the other thing that I thought is interesting, Casey, that you just brought up is boys getting sexually abused. Okay, so the boys that get sexually abused, they have a tendency to say, oh, it's, try to make it sound cool, or, an adult person sexually abused the little boy. And
Right.
I've seen cases of, we call them male on male or female on male or male on female.
Right.
It can go any of these ways.
Right.
Just this is not a gender-based issue.
No.
It goes across the board. And when you're talking about teenagers at the age of 13, that age happens to be one of the most prevalent ages that I see this, girls particularly, and boys, I've represented boys as well, coming forward, or the predator getting caught, and that age group seems to be sort of the age group that we see it happening a lot in our organizations. And there's no such thing as consent, which the St. Lucie County School Board has raised in cases that I have brought, consent. So I just want to say on record, there is no such thing for a minor child to consent
to give consent
sex
ever,
or sexual abuse or any kind of sexual
They're a minor
activity
child.
with an adult. Okay, there's no such thing.
Does it become a little more muddied when both children are minors?
Yes. Okay. So what we see a lot in the investigations when and I'm talking about DCF. So you have a duty, and it's a wonderful system when it works. If you even have the least inkling of the suspicion of abuse, there's a system in place where you're supposed to call the hotline. It's put on by the Department of Children and Families, the state of Florida, and it's the abuse hotline. You pick up the phone and you say, I suspect abuse, and they investigate. So what they do is they'll investigate, and when it's two children involved, many times what I see in these investigations is it comes forward from the DCF investigator that it was child's play. Okay, so then they just sort of slough it off and say, well, it's child's play. I don't think there's anything such thing as child's play on sexual activity. So if one child is coaxing another child into sexual play, especially for the younger children, the investigation needs to focus on two victims here. Not only the child that's been sexually abused by the other child, but the child who did the sexual abuse, because they're learning this somewhere.
Right.
Where
That's
are
a
they
good
learning
point.
this from? Now, I know the internet, as they get older, and that's a whole other topic that I don't have a solution
Oh, I
for you
know.
on that.
Internet's a scary thing right now, especially for parents with children.
I don't know what to
Right.
say about all that, but they are learning it. The
Right.
younger they are now, if a parent is letting a child get access to all of that, and then they learn it, and then they come to school and practice. It's typically not that, though. It's typically that they're the victim of abuse themselves.
Right. I think that's something that you probably see a lot as the patterns, and it starts out with that pattern of repeated abuse through generations oftentimes, which is very sad. The reason why I brought up the boys even being abused is even with human trafficking, that is who they target. And you talk about predators, it's the same kind of thing. They're targeting vulnerable children. And, it doesn't matter to them if it's a boy or a girl. They look for that child that's vulnerable for whatever reason.
Think of it as prey. So your child is out there, right? You're not around. You're not protecting them. There are certain children, yes, that seem to be bigger items of prey than other types of children.
Right.
You could go down a list, and I don't really want to say that necessarily happens. I mean, you can have a very secure family life. You can have the very loving family. You can have people that are involved. But also sometimes we see the children that are prey. They come from broken families, or they have mental issues, or they want to, for whatever reason, sometimes, not always, these children are the ones that become the prey. And so they look for hunting. It's just like, think of it, as a predator on hunting grounds, and they're looking for the easy prey.
I was going to say, and some of these predators are very good at what they do, and you have to realize that even the best of children can be tricked by them.
The more access they have, and the more times they do it, the more brazen they become, and the better they become at it.
Gloria, what can parents look for Coral Shores, for example? As a parent, if I needed to send my child there, where can I look at organizations, various ones, and see what kind of history they have? Do they have a history of abuse? Do they have a history of a lot of being called a lot in, police calls or what have you?
Well,
what can a parent do?
I'm not really sure how a parent can find out. I mean, I could think of as a lawyer, tools that I have. For instance, in this case, I did what's called a crime grid, and for 3 years, to see how many times the police have been called to Coral Shores in Martin County. Turns out that it averaged out about once a week.
Wow.
And in a 3-year period, there were like 17 assault.
Wow.
And these are just the ones they report.
Right.
Okay. My clients wasn't in there.
Wasn't even reported.
Mine wasn't in there. So there, you could do that. I mean, I don't know if there's a clearinghouse where somebody could call. I do know with daycares, they have a licensing files, and they have public record that you can go to. I think you just go by your instinct. If you walk in and they say, well, you can't come back. You're dropping your child off here at the daycare, but you can't come back here, and you want to talk to the teacher, or your child comes home crying every day about one of the particular teachers, or your child suddenly doesn't want to go to school, or they they start spending time with a coach, or a coach is contacting them. These are kinds of
huge
red
flags.
Yeah.
Folks, this is Gloria Seidule. Gloria, thank you so much for coming in. And I want to make sure I give out your website. It's glorialaw.com, glorialaw.com. If you have any questions, I know that you certainly, this is one of many fields, but something you're very passionate about. And thank God you're out there, Gloria, because this is important to help stop this for other children. As a parent, this was even a hard show for me just listening to it. And thank you for what you do. If you want to call Gloria, 772-287-1220, 287-1220. She's been here in Stuart over 30 years. Gloria Seidule, going to be following this case. Again, this was against Coral Shores, but there's been so many others. And thank God there's people like you out there protecting our children. So,
well, thank you for having me.
It was absolutely my pleasure. And next week, again, will be the last show. We're going to have Nick Tezecker with Disaster Studios and Rob Ranieri, House of Hope.